So I have about 30 slides, and I always say a minute a slide. So it's about 30 minutes of sort of discussion opening, and then hopefully have some opportunity for open discussion and or questions, and like we did last time. And it's been a while. It's been about 4 months. And I do want to say that there was some intention of having other meetings in the interim. However, as you'll see a little bit later, I'll foreshadow some campus-wide initiatives that I think will be very interesting and get our creative juices flowing and opportunities to meet moving forward. So bear with me a little bit. So I just want to talk about 3 broad-based areas: realities, where we are, resiliency, and what we are doing now in these very challenging times, and then rethinking about where we might go, not only as a college, but also the university as a whole. So I'll begin with the realities. So as you might remember, we have experienced a large budget cut. Originally, it was about 24.5% of a budget cut to our college. And after President Montgomery's announcement about a month ago or a little bit longer about not quite as bad as the worst case scenario, we're about at a 21.9% budget reduction in academic affairs. And it was across the board to the colleges. Some aspects of making that a little bit more than you might think is because academic affairs has scholarships, financial aid, debt retirement for academic buildings, and those are all part of the academic affairs budget that we have to continue to pay. So we couldn't remove that from or use that for a budget cut. So I want to remind people that it was a permanent budget reduction. We have other sources of funding that come in that help, including in the past EUP, now WMX. We have grants and we have other contracts that help our college budget. But we were talking about when we had our 21.9% cut, the base budget of the college. It was originally going to be about 18.5 million, 18.470565, and it ended up to be a budget of 14.414180 budget, which is a budget reduction of just over $4 million. Now, I don't know if you remember this slide a number of months ago, where I kind of broke down as simple as possible where we were coming up with our budget reductions. It was with vacancies, which has been the tradition in history, faculty retirements, including the incentivized retirement plan, as well as 11 or so planned retirements for a total of 19 positions. Faculty resignations, we had 3. Administrative staff that we were required, and I'll get into that in the next slide as well, to make reductions, and it was about 7.8 FTEs in reductions, 5 individuals in the RIF, and about 2.8 in FTEs across the people who have remained on our staff, or some of the people who have remained on our staff. Some administrative savings, and that included 2 positions, including one of the positions being the associate dean. We, in this process, lost Ann Tyler to retirement. She's helping on a contract basis to get us through this year, but that's a huge loss. And then some operational reduction for supplies and equipment and travel that we found. So we cut a total of 4.956 million, and that's in the red there. However, we planned all along to bring back about 8 positions. And so with putting back spending $900,000 moving forward, it comes up to a $4.056 million budget cut. So I just want to emphasize a few things. These budget cuts were not strategic. They weren't. The main reason, the main way that we made cuts, both historically and then currently with this huge 21.9% cut, was through people retiring or resigning. or holding open positions. That's really the only way, unless we would go just like we did with staff, if we would go by way of cutting or laying off faculty, and we chose not to do that as a university. We chose not to do that, and then as a college. So, you know, with an incremental budget model that we've had, and we do have this year as well, the only way when we're going down in our budget to repair that hole in the budget is to rely on these vacancies. So we also made some administrative cuts, like I mentioned. You know, associate dean, we're not filling that role right now. I don't plan to, unless we can find maybe a different creative way of funding all that Ann had done for our college, and it's a role that has been very important to me and to, I think, other leadership at our college and faculty in our college. But hiring back faculty is our highest priority. And we're really focusing on those units that were impacted the most. It wasn't an across the board a retirement, as you might imagine. There are some units that got hit pretty hard with the number of faculty that they had. And others weren't impacted at all because they're a new program, for example, or a new department. So the only way that we can see that we make any further cuts would be administrative. And I'm not saying that there's any further cuts to happen, but a little bit we're worried about the state of Michigan, and whether or not, with huge deficits with the state, if institutions of higher education are going to be held harmless as they have been so far this year. In the state budget that was approved October 1st, it held harmless institutions of higher education. There may be a mid-year cut like there has been in the past. We don't know, but we have to brace ourselves if we do. So I want to also give you some realities in terms of our enrollments. Our enrollments are down. Our enrollments are down at the campus level at about a total of 4.6% down. We're down 6.1% in enrollment overall. The major areas, 8.9% less than last fall on the undergraduate level. At the graduate level, we remain even. So a total of 6.1%, where the campuses, the enrollment has reduced to, by 4.6%. In terms of student credit hours, our undergrad has also, of course, been impacted at negative 8.2%, negative 5.4% overall in student credit hours, and the campus is actually higher than that at negative 6.5%. There's been a huge graduate melt at the university level, whereas we held the same, and that was because we've just started the OTD program and another cohort of the DPT program, even though we're teaching out the masters in OT as well. So these are percent changes from fall of 19 to now. And just a quick note of importance, I think, that based on demographics and high school grad trends in the state of Michigan, we're projected to be at a total enrollment at our campus of about 17,000 students in about 2030. So way back when, in 2003-04, we were at, as a campus, over 30,000 students. I think it was 30,400 or something like that. It's on my chart in the back on my grease board. But we were at about just over 30,000, and we will back in, so what is that? In about 26 years, we're gonna be down from 30,000 to about 17,000 total students. And that's based on demographic trends and high school graduation rates. So we have a lot to think about. What are we gonna be like in over the next 10 years? Okay, so enough of that. Those are our realities. Those are our budget, financial realities, and those are enrollment realities. I have some good news as far as enrollments coming up, but and some other good news financially. So why don't we go into that in what we are doing now. So I just want to highlight, and I'm sorry if I'm leaving some things out. This was one slide that I didn't have fully, but I just wanted to highlight a few things that we have just started in fall. The first OT cohort of 48 students, 24 here in Kalamazoo, 24 in Grand Rapids. The second DPT cohort of 30 students, so now we're at 60 with that program. The interdisciplinary health sciences PhD is the second largest PhD program as far as enrollment on our campus, and we average about 6 graduates a year. We're continuing to explore other possibilities, including healthcare administration, but the only way we're going to be able to do that is if we partner strongly with the Hayworth College of Business for the courses that our students would need on the business side. And then we have a renewed and increased interest, as you might imagine, with the pandemic that we're confronted with our public health programs, which took a little dip, but actually are now students are knocking on our doors to begin those programs, both at the bachelor's and the master's level. So we're also doing a lot internally as it relates to student connection, student advising, student engagement, student success, including our planned welcome center that was going to be a physical location and ends up to be actually a remote location now through WebEx conversations. And we have positive outcomes with our student ambassadors who are amazing to be in contact with 230 or more students. And we had them applied and accepted for fall 2021. So that's a good sign as well. Academic advising we're doing remotely. We have full schedules. Students, we're connecting as well with campus level aspects of excellence in academic advising, the Western Essential Studies, and so on. And we're starting some good, strong articulation agreements with community colleges. We're also very interested, as you might imagine, on student retention and making sure that we're there and responsive for the professional development and success of all students that come into our doors. And so that's been an area of work that we've been putting a lot of emphasis in, even though we're down in staff. So here's some aspects of working on yield. This is after or at the time and before the fall 20 cohorts have come in. But when we look at fall 2021 and then actually spring 2021, we have a lot of connections with our potential students, freshmen. We're trying to increase our yield with freshmen and transfer students. So some good news for the campus is that we are one of 4 institutions across Michigan that are actually up or stable in applications for next year. There are some institutions that are down 20–30%, our state of Michigan institutions. I believe I know the one that is down about 20-some%. I hate to say it in case I'm wrong, but Michigan is doing well. Michigan State is doing well. We're doing well. I'm forgetting the 4th, but we're up there and we're not far, or we're stable from last year when it comes to application numbers, which is a good sign for us. So we're cultivating projects and partnerships, including career exploration and pipeline programs through Spectrum Health, and looking at 9th and 10th graders from Northwest Michigan. We're looking at a partnership, started a partnership with WMed. AHEC stands for Area Health Education Center, that we're doing work with first year med students and the interprofessional course, plus a 1-credit elective for the Medical 3 and Medical 4 students on interprofessional education. Kind of tied to community connectedness and advancing our programs, we received an appropriation in the state budget, which we found out about the day before that it was signed into budget on October 30th, that we were going to be receiving upwards of $3 million over 3 years. And it's looking at those families and children who are experiencing trauma, toxic stress, chronic disability, neurodevelopmental disorders, and substance use disorders. We had our first steering committee meeting across many disciplines within our college and without, across the Western Michigan University, as well as WMed this past Wednesday. And that's exciting. We continue with immersion days. Remember, we used to have all students coming in, 8th and 9th graders, and so on, coming in, and high schoolers coming in person, but we're doing that remotely now. We have a number of continuing education. Please visit our website on our new continuing ed website, where we have awarded over 1,100 education hours so far, more than 400 health and human services professionals across 4 states. We are working, we're new Qualtrics ways of registering people, evaluating people, certifying people. It's pretty exciting, under the leadership of Lisa Brennan, Nick Pastelli, and Alicia Krebs. And we're moving forward at a time when we didn't think we would be, when we had most everything in person, and we shifted pretty quickly. So related to recruitment and outreach, we have open houses. They're all virtual. There's information sessions. We have conducted over 30 events in October, 330 prospective students, 34 events scheduled for November. And faculty across our units have been exceptional in their participation. We even have breakout rooms now where we can go from a full group, and then we can break out into rooms that are of interest, more focused areas. We've had 60 virtual one-on-one sessions with our student ambassadors. We're making connections. Right next door to me in the adjoining office or adjacent office, our student ambassadors are contacting students all day long to try to connect into our college with some great success. In terms of research, we've had a strong 2020, even though we've experienced a lot of setback and a lot of uncertainty. 61 proposal submissions, and that's a large number. Typically, it's about 40. We had 40 awards for about 6.3 million, and this is the 5th highest in the last 10 years. So it's up there. We're doing well at a time when, I don't know, maybe we are able to be more focused when we're not at the campus, but here's some data about submissions, awards, and expenditures. We're holding our own. Last year was a banner year for us. I think we even we're top at the university. We typically run, and we're running about 2nd across our colleges. So we're doing very well. And here's some examples of highlights. And I won't go and read each one of these, but Dr. Chaplot, Dr. Henry, Dr. Kreider, Dr. Weller, all successful in receiving awards, as well as Dr. Kim, Dr. Lee and Elise Connors. What's not in here, I believe Dr. Anderson has also received some funding through blindness and low vision studies. So a lot of successes, a lot of awards. We're starting a few things and keeping things going, even though we don't have Ann Tyler as Associate Dean. She's been amazing, working about 6 to 8 hours a week on keeping some of our support services for our junior faculty going, including virtual research tools workshop by Dr. Laurla out of the interdisciplinary doc program on research survey methods. And I believe he's going to be having another session around data analysis. And he has a group and students that are working with him if you have data analysis needs within the college here. We're soon launching our senior researcher mentoring program, and that's with help from a number of our more senior faculty here in pairing up with some of our junior faculty, and then a fuller research advisory council. I think Anne has a little bit almost more focus now that she's handling just research rather than all of the other things like IPE and other associate dean responsibilities as assigned that she was handling for years. So that focus on research has actually been positive. So now I'm going to move a little bit to, because those are the things that we're doing on a number of fronts to keep ourselves going, keep ourselves relevant, keep ourselves active, keep ourselves supportive of students. And I think we're doing a wonderful job with few resources in that area. And oh, by the way, we really never had much focus on outreach and recruitment when it came to the larger college. Many departments have outreach and recruitment coordinators, and some of that has been going on for years, but never from a college-wide perspective. And so I'm very pleased that we were able to do that. So the university is in a spot with giving some of those numbers. We have, I don't even know what it would amount to, probably before even COVID, and we had probably a 27% decrease in enrollment from our peak back in 2003, 2004. Our college didn't have that. I think a lot of things happened with our college. We kept on getting faculty coming into our college and new programs in our college. We actually increased. But what I'm really trying to talk about here is the overall reduction in total enrollment at our campus. And because of that enrollment, what has been happening is 15 or so years of cuts to our budgets, right? And to the point that we have to do something new and different if we're going to be sustainable, relevant, and responsive to our students, as well as our potential students. So a number of things have been happening, including Think Big, and I put a link there. We're going to share the slides, so you'll have these links available when needed. A Rethink Smart campaign, you may have seen this on the TV near you, or even heard about it in other ways on campus. We have One WMU, which is focused on being a student-centric, student-focused campus from when students first come into onto our campus. As we know, in our professions, oftentimes we don't see our students until they're maybe in their tail end of their sophomore or junior year. Oftentimes they take a lot of their curricula, their coursework in the College of Arts and Sciences and across the rest of the campus. So it's important that we engage our students right away, right off the bat, and even at a point when they're potential students. We should be very responsive, and One WMU will help us with that. Another student services, and I don't have the link here, I'm sorry, because we couldn't find it. Actually, if you go to Syndicuse, you can find a link to something called You at WMU, and that's well-being that is personalized. It's using an app to connect students and actually assess students in various areas of sleep and belonging and personal general health and well-being, including things like depression and anxiety symptoms and things of that nature, and then also to help students be resilient under those conditions. And it's a really new and interesting platform that is being used by student services and Syndicuse. The Faculty Senate back in, I believe it ended in May, but it was all in spring of last year. They were working on, an ad hoc committee was working on interdisciplinary work and opportunities on our campus, and have a report out, and there's the link to get to that. It's from the Faculty Senate subcommittee, or a subcommittee of the Faculty Senate. And I believe Mark Mark Kelly and Kieran Fogarty were part of that because of their interdisciplinary nature of their disciplines and their schools and their programs with the doc program. And then academic affairs, I'm giving you a little foreshadow here. Academic affairs is coming out with a initiative revolving around interdisciplinarity. And it really is a outcome of this ad hoc committee that looked at opportunities for interdisciplinarity. We had an academic forum yesterday with the chairs and directors as an initial rollout, just to let people know where we are. And in a town hall, you should have received an email from Provost Bott about a town hall at 3 p.m., 3 till 5 p.m. Next Wednesday, the 18th. And the link is there as well for you in case you haven't received that. So there's a lot of university initiatives around responsivity to students and really flexibilities in what we can offer and interdisciplinary offerings that we could offer for our students. So this quote came directly out of this ad hoc interdisciplinary studies report. As we look to the future, it is our belief that we are reaching a point in higher education, and not just here, this is national, where departments can no longer afford to go it alone. Rather, the value of reaching out within colleges and across the university at large becomes important in ensuring that various kinds of core knowledge areas and future skill sets are made available to our students. So why rethink? Why reimagine? And how can we reimagine? So I think we have to look aspirationally. And I challenge us within our college. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more on how to get engaged at the university level with the byproduct of us in our college reimagining, rethinking, and retooling what we do and how we do it for our students. And I'll give some ideas, and some of these things are the things that keep me up at night. And I talk about often to people next door to me, Alicia, and others, and some of our team, as well as the chairs and directors, and now you. And I'd like to do more of that. But it's aspirational. You know that quality is very important. It will be a differentiator. We do know in our college, and I say this all the time to various stakeholders and audiences, that we do prepare our students for careers that are high in demand, high in meaning, high in satisfaction, and unsurpassed in impact, almost to and every one of our disciplines. We're that impactful to our communities and individuals and families, locally and across our state. We also want to make sure we're enhancing learning and discovery, creating sustainable programs, and balancing our workload. We're all being asked to do more with less, much less this year than ever before. We want to be student-centered. We want flexibilities. We want aligning career pathways. Mary Lagerwey and I talked a little bit yesterday about this, on how, yes, nursing has to have this depth of training for their students. 300 students apply for nursing programs, and every year only 90 of those students get accepted, about a third, not even. And where are those other students going? They're high GPA students, 3.75, 3.5, 3.75 and above. Where are they going? How can we could be looking for other career pathways, not necessarily only as a secondary choice, but also some opportunities for primary choices in career. For example, in the area of healthcare and healthcare sciences, if we had an option, when I came here a few years ago, and actually a year before that, I said, you guys need a bachelor's of science in healthcare administration. We need a master's in healthcare administration. And for a few reasons, not to redirect any resources. Actually, I think we can work, for example, with business so that we don't have to teach the full program, maybe only half of it, the health aspects, and they can teach the business aspects. But what a great option for students to either as their primary track or as a secondary track if they don't make it into some very high competitive programs. We need flexibilities with our offerings so that if we have some common core courses like methods, stats, ethics, we have an opportunity that early on our students, even with biology, chemistry, and all of that as well, but that they have some common core courses, and then we help them find their next fork in the road in their career pathway. I think we want to foster interdisciplinarity, and it's tougher at the bachelor's maybe level and in some master's level programs, but I think there are some opportunities there, but there's even more opportunities, I think, at the doctoral level. And I think that's going to be important to look at. I think we can look at some common shared student support services like outreach, admissions, advising, success, placements, and internships. Some common shared administrative support services like research support, for example. And we also have to look at distributed revenue and expense for SRM as we're approaching that. And I do want to make a little comment about that. And because of COVID, we took a little break on SRM, but it's still going to be happening July 1st of 2021, this coming July, layered on top of our incremental model. That I do want to say, if I haven't said it before, that our college is above the 0 point line when it comes to revenue and expenses. We're above the line. Some colleges aren't. I think of the 7 colleges, 3 are above and 4 are below the line when it comes to balancing out when we look at enrollment and student credit hours, predominantly student credit hours, and then the cost of instruction. We're above the line. We're in a good spot. We will know more starting July 1st on how much of the funding will fully come to us. And then our challenge would be to look at our programs and look at the wide array of programs that we are offering and look and do an analysis at the programmatic level and the department level. So I think this is all going to be very important, and we're going to want to continue and invest in programs that may not be, they may be expensive to roll out, but we still want a wide array of what we offer to our students. I'm going a little bit over. So I posed this question last time, I edited it a little bit, but what would $14.5 million budget, what would be important to us? What would we build? What would we pay attention to? Would it be health and human services? It would be equity and racial and social justice? Would we look at programs that are in the prevention, the intervention, or the rehabilitation realm? Would we look at individual, family, community, full populations, health and social services across the lifespan? If you're not familiar with the life course framework. Resiliency for children, families, and communities. What would bring us together? I purposely took names out here. I think back in June, I had names there. I took these out because we could coalesce around several things, right? There might be, I have some ideas. I gave an idea last time, but I don't want to be prescriptive. I want us to be creative. There are also some cross-cutting strategic priorities: diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to make some investments into that. I'm working with one of our faculty members to lead our efforts even more and more hopefully impactfully and strongly that we've invested prior to this with our diversity and inclusion committee. We need some real change, real positive change. We put forward a statement on race and anti-racism in summer. I hope you all have seen that. It's what we believe in, what we are, what we need to be as a college. We need to cultivate interprofessional education. Every one of our disciplines, they're asking for it. They're asking for that training. We're working with the medical college as well, the medical school in some of these areas. Research and innovation is knowledge building and enhancement is what we're all about. We need more efforts on how we can cultivate research and innovation. And we have to look at strategic resource management as well as strategy for our college over the long term. There's some good business case reasons. There are some barriers. We know what they are. The thing that keeps me up at night is we have disciplines that we need that depth. We can't spread those disciplines, right? We have to meet the needs of licensure, of the accreditation for those students. We know that. But there's other ways that maybe we could have looks at interdisciplinarity and working across our areas. So I wasn't going to even share this slide, but I will. And I want to, first of all, let you know that we want your engagement and your being involved in a process. Now, we can do this within our college, but I'm foreshadowing a little bit. Academic affairs, the provost will be talking to faculty senate in a town hall format that I gave on the 18th. I gave the information and the link for that, about what we're doing in academic affairs. We can also look internal to our college and kind of go along the same process and the same timeline. I don't want to say too much about it now because I want you all to be able to hear from the provost next week. It's very exciting. We're thinking about our future 5 to 10 years from now. We're thinking about the life and the sustainability of Western Michigan University, as well as within our college and our College of Health and Human Services. There's opportunities for potentially realignment, and there's opportunities for interdisciplinarity. I have a couple of things in my back pocket. Like I said, I talked with the dean of business, and he's thrilled to work together with our leadership here in our college for a bachelor's of science in healthcare administration. And we wouldn't have to put a lot of resources into it because we'd be sharing the workload with the business college. So those are just some ideas I'm going to put out there. I'm going to fully take questions. Don't hold me too much to this timeline and process, because this should map over what we're going to be doing with the campus. We're going to go along the same timeline and process, and Provost Spot will discuss that next week. So I do have some good news. We did put together, I don't know if this is the right way, and it's probably going to be folded, or maybe not, because we're probably not going to print these. There's a link to the 2020 impact report that's provided for you that we'll make sure, again, you'll get these slides so you can just connect right in through the slides. We have posted the college retirees. I think it was 19 people who retired. 19 people who retired. And they're all the folks are all on our website. I have a short introduction, but what we're going to do is give a little bit more of the impact of what they've had to our college, and we're going to be posting that information, and not only to our college, but across the university and the community. We will be rounding up ourselves and sending out a weekly roundup where we can provide information and connectivity. I think it'll be really important as we go through a process of reimagining, realigning, and rethinking what we do. So I'm going to end with this as well, because again, with many audiences and many stakeholders, and our careers are high in demand. There are people waiting at the door to come. It may not seem like it with our numbers, but that's a high school and a demographic thing. We still pretty much fill up our programs maybe to capacity, most often to capacity, but there's other ways we could connect and keep our students connected. High in purpose or meaning, high in satisfaction with our careers, and unsurpassed in impact. And then I just want to open up for questions and discussion. I'm going to put this, I want to see everyone, but at the same time, if you have questions about a slide, I might need to go back to that. So I don't know if we want to take questions through the chat or open, wide open for discussion. I'm open either way. We have plenty of time. I'm just trying to figure out a way to get a bigger picture of everyone. Yes, go ahead.
So Ron, just looking in the chat, there are only a couple of questions so far, but one is going back to something you mentioned about a July 1st date for layering the SRM over the current budget model. Is there an updated timeline for the new budget model?
So the way, so the layering behind the scenes is happening, right? Because we're generating the model, right? We've seen parts of those models, but there's been tweaks now to the model. And we're meeting on Tuesday to find out more. And I know on the agenda, one of the things is how and when can we roll this out informationally to everyone? And that's one of the agenda items. The only thing that has maybe changed a little bit is that there is a couple things. One, sort of a hold harmless period. And think about it. If we're moving to a new model, we just can't turn it on. So what we're going to do is hold units harmless if they have a deficit for a period of time so that we can make our shifts, right? We can, so if a unit is in the red, there's got to be time for that unit to maybe do things differently, and also for further discussions at the sort of strategic and philosophical level of investing in programs that we believe in, even if they may not be making money or meeting their bottom line. So there's going to be probably a 3-year-ish, maybe 2-year-ish hold harmless period, but then shifts will be made, adjustments will be made. That doesn't mean that us as a college, that we can't advance in some certain areas, and that we can't start looking in areas that we could bring in some revenues. And we will be looking at that. CE is a great opportunity, but so are, we could look at fees. I hate to go down that path, but some units have looked differentially at what price they could charge for a program that's high in demand. And we may have some flexibilities to do that a little bit differently. We may not, let's say in social work, but we may in, I don't quote me on this, in OT or some other program that we have 300-400 applications every year. And I know not everyone is going to choose us. I get that. So we could have some flexibilities on changing that up, and it'll be at a different time. There's not a change in necessarily start time, but there's more a change in how we roll it out. And I think that's smart. We can't just cut a unit off because we have our union, we have our faculty who are protected. We have protections, and we have things that we have to make sure that we abide by.
Okay. We think, Ron, at the top of your screen, you should have an option somewhere to stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, probably. So I'm hoping then that I won't have to go back to.
Boy. So the next question that we have right now, Ron, getting back to realignment, is why we're looking at 3 areas in the college, with understanding that not all programs fit neatly into themes.
Yeah, and I as you could tell on my latest slide, I didn't put a name there, and yeah, areas may not fit perfectly. I think loosely they all do. I guess the other question is more than these areas is how would we administer it, right? So I know I'm kind of not answering the question. I think in a very broad sense, the ones that I gave back in June, I think there's some natural sort of connections, but I think what's more important or more probably the issue is, well, how would we administratively and by leadership and by coordination or whatever, how would we actually operationalize this? How would we actually carry this forward? Because we do know that there's accreditation requirements and standards. We do know that leaders have to have certain credentials. We do know that when we have administrators and leaders, they have a different role and they're different than the faculty. And in fact, we can't have faculty evaluating faculty. We can't have faculty assigning workload to faculty and those things, which are sort of a different role that we have to honor and make sure we abide by. So I think, we could loosely find some common areas where people can coalesce under, but I think the operationalizing of it is a difficult thing. The other thing, though, I do have to say is what keeps me up at night and what I'm afraid of are those cross-cutting areas of diversity, inclusion, equity. We have to have leadership on that level. We need leadership in IPE. We need leadership in research and innovation. We need leadership and part of this, it's my understanding, having some business background, is strategic resource management. I can do most of that, but I need help as well. So those are the areas that we had some support in the past under almost all of those falling to, not all, two out of those four falling under the associate dean's responsibilities. And so we have to look at leadership in those cross-cutting areas. We have to pay attention to those areas over time and much more planfully and proactively and strategically than probably ever before.
Okay, the next question then goes back to budget concerns. Wouldn't everyone's baseline budget be lower going into the SRM with major staff cuts? And are there concerns about the level of CR production being able to be sustained?
So I'm going to take a quick drink of water. That was a long 40 minutes. I don't foresee more cuts. I don't foresee more cuts when it comes to the budget framework. Again, we're above the line and we have expenses. We have to document our true expenses, not only with perm funded positions, but also part-time positions, term positions, and so on. Those are dollars that we need. Those are positions and expenses that we have to run our college. That will be our baseline. So SRM shouldn't cut our budget. What happens is after we know what our revenues will be, or actually we're going to take a 2-year rolling horizon on resources, revenues, because if it keeps on going down, we have to flatten it somewhere. But we're going to know our revenues and we know our expenses going into it. And that's our starting point. What we don't expend will help subvent the rest of the colleges that are not above the $0, right? Balancing their book. Subvention is required, especially in this hold harmless period. But we're not below. We're not relying on subvention. We'll make our budget. Now, what I worry about is the state budget allocation, appropriation for our students. That's what I worry about. That's an unknown. Potentially continuing lower enrollment, that's an unknown. Those are the things I worry about. Those are the things that will dig into our revenues. And again, it's unknown. If something like that happens in a big way, then I'm afraid we have to make cuts. We're just hoping that that won't happen.
Would it be okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, would it be okay if I just clarify my question a little bit?
Sure.
So I was referring to the staff cuts that are already made. So like in social work, we have 1.3 FTE of staff support. And so if, you know, that trend, that moving trend, going into it, we used to have 3.5. So that credit hour production is based on when we had full staffing. So even if you trend it, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Now we're moving into an SRM with 1.3. And so it's going to be like a lagging indicator.
Yeah, that was D, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, D. Yes, and what we're going to need to do is find with other resources. If we find ways of new resources, let's just forget about our base budget or the revenue expense right now. But if we advance what we do in CE, and I can speak to that for a bit because I came from a place where we were bringing in about $1.4 million in CE for a College of Health Sciences. And I've given that challenge and we've responded somewhat. We were in the red when I came in CE. We're going above the line. I don't know exactly how much, at least $60,000 this year. And the more we advance that and grow that, those are dollars to our college. Then we can relook at some of the funding that we get, can buy out, let's say my time as the PI of the Resiliency Center. I'm going to release some of my dollars so that we can invest in other ways in our college. So those creative ways are always going to be there. They're very important. It's work. We all know what work is to get dollars and how hard it is, but any ways that we can do that helps reinvest. Now, the downside of those soft dollars are that they are soft. Then we have people who are on term or temporary or whatever. That's the downside. We're always going to have some of that. And hopefully, I ran a center for years, for about 15 years. And what I always thought is, I'm not going to bring anybody on until I know I have dollars for them for at least 2 to 3 years. Why? If it's a year, I mean, they were on annual contracts, yes. But if I didn't have enough funding for that person, some core funding to help them, and then they would also get more dollars, why would I invest in that person? And so we could do it like this. There should be like 2 to 3 year rolling horizon funding available that we use soft dollars on, and hopefully a model or framework like that would help. As we know with EUP, some of our funding in EUP was rather shaky, right? And so we built a number of temporaries on dollars that weren't part of the base budget. Now, just to let you know, whatever we have for our faculty and tenure track faculty and some of our other costs, we should be able to recover, because any EUP, which were EUP dollars that we were bringing in, are now coming to us as a college. And that will be part of the SRM. Just so you know, I want to clarify one thing too. The appropriation dollars for the students that follow the students, that comes to us as well. Then we get taxed, and then we get charged for space, right? That's okay. We're still above the line. We're in the positive. Better than not being in the positive as a college. I hope I answered your question, Dee.
Thank you.
The next question, still on budget. Does the SRM reflect external research, grant funds, and indirect money brought into the college and the department, or is SRM solely based on credit and tuition generation?
Yeah, it's primarily credit tuition generation. Actually, I've worked on this one. Does it also include? I'm going to ask for you. Does it also include course fees? Yes. Now, don't freak out, because this is the one I freaked out upon. But we're building back the expenses. So if you have course fees, it will be taxed. But we build back the expenses, which go back to the students. I hope that's clear. Because those are revenues that they have to account for that come in that way, come in from students. It's simpler, but it gets built back in because we have those costs. Let's say that we charge, I'm going to make something up, students $100 for a lab coat when they come in. If we were charged 40% on that lab coat, we'd only have $60 to buy a lab coat for them, right? Or whatever. I don't know if this is a real scenario. But we're being built back the cost of those goods. So the $100 is an expense. So yeah, it might get taxed, but we get those dollars on the expense side. And then after that, we subvent. I hope that was clear. If it isn't fully clear, someday it will be, because I'll be able to share with you exactly what the factors are. So grant dollars, contract dollars, I'm trying to think, CE dollars, those dollars do not get taxed. Those, because most of that is direct costs, right? There is an indirect cost charged to it, and even that model will be changed. The lion's share goes now to the university. In the future, the lion's share will come to the college, the department, and the PI, which is another change that will be happening. I think that one's going to be happening July 1st. And then we have to figure out how to allocate, and we'll have like a common framework for that across our college. Across our university, so that colleges are kind of distributing those funds pretty evenly across colleges. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, there's not an awful lot of chatting going on here. So
it was just because I was so clear, right, in my presentation, right?
You were very thorough.
Yes, sure. Yes, Yvonne? Unreal? I do see the chat now. I wasn't able to keep up with it, but now I'm caught up.
Can you hear me? My camera's not working today. So yes, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, first of all, for all the thinking and planning. For me, I'm actually hearing a lot of this for the first time. And so there's some excitement, and then there's a ton of questions. One of the primary concerns, and I know this sort of blends through, is that, we're really talking about our students now as revenue units. And, we're in a reality, at least in social work, I don't know how this is in other departments, but, most of our classes are being taught by part-time instructors, many of whom are graduates of our own programs. And we're in this situation of having sort of near peer teaching. So I have two questions. One, you mentioned earlier about we're aiming to train students for the healthcare fields. And I would love to hear you speak about your vision, not for us training students, but for us educating students to be leaders and change agents moving forward. So that's really one. And how do we do that? And then two, really, how do we make sure that we are thinking about the student who is incurring a lifetime of debt Many of our students who are depending on invisible needs or social services, just to get through their college education. So I'm wondering if we could shift some of the language to how do we invest in our students, opposed to seeing our students as a way to keep the enterprise running. So I'm not trying to be critical about that. I do understand the reality, but I just feel like the ideas, Dean Sisler, are super exciting. Just want to balance out the conversation.
Well, thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, very important. In fact, in most of some of the slides, at least, I think students first, right? In fact, the university with 1WMU, we are putting first and foremost with Think Big. We're putting first and foremost our students. What are the students' needs? Now, that doesn't get at financial. However, the one example I gave, what if a student is taking his or her biology and chemistry, they've gone down that path, they've invested all this money, come their junior year, end of their sophomore year, and they don't get into a program. How is that not bringing a student down a path with not a good option for them to move on and pivot and have other good options? And in fact, I've talked to some of our leaders in some of our areas, even maybe social work, that not everybody is a good clinician, right? Or can be on that path to be a good clinician, but there's many health and human services jobs out there that if you make a small pivot, I don't want to put anybody out here, but someone was talking to me about their daughter-in-law, who was going to go down the path of nursing and then got into a program on data analytics in healthcare and decision support, and is flourishing in that area. I mean, some people can be good with folks, and oftentimes people don't make it in their programs if they're not good have a good bedside manner, have a good rapport or ability to engage with patients. So I don't know if I'm fully getting at this. Yeah, from a budgetary standpoint, Yvonne, you're right. We're talking about revenue and expenses. I get that. But I also think that we do have careers that to a career, those students are going to be impacting our individuals, our families, and communities across the board, whether it be behind the scenes or remotely or actually in person. And so I'm just thinking that if we could build in this interdisciplinarity, if we can build in flexibilities where possible. I do know that some disciplines need that depth, but once we find out that maybe a student isn't making or it isn't for them, they're not doing, what are some other ways that we can help our students succeed? So it's not impersonal, and I'm not trying to be. We have a responsibility, I think, to engage at that personal or the class schedule. We all do, and the better we can do that, and we do that clinically, we do that with placements, we do that in Unified, we do it in so many different ways that I think we have a lot of opportunity to connect and to engage. And what we're doing with our professional development aspects, and we wish we could do more in person, is just that. What kind of experiences can we help our students get that we don't already get because of our clinical and public health and other programs, that that we can make sure that they're getting a really good bang for their buck. And the other thing is a couple of other things. I come from a university where we had a total of $3 million in student funding for our students at the full university, same size university. I find out that we have about $43 million here at WMU that we give for student scholarships. And that's part of that academic affairs. We made an intentional decision to hold harmless the academic scholarships that we give to our students. It's pretty extensive, and it's built into the budget. So other universities don't have that built-in, those scholarships funding built in. The other thing is, you probably remember that we were one of those universities, I think highest in the state, that what did he call it? Social. It's with our Pell eligible students. Did they actually complete a degree and social movement? Were they brought to the level and reinforced and engaged to the level that they graduated? And we're one of the top ranking universities, I think the top in the state. So I think we do a good job once students do make it here. And definitely we want students first as part of what we do. And that, I think that's the crux. If we lose students because they don't make it into a program, I'm not just picking on nursing, but there's other options and there's other ways that we can support and engage. Sorry, Mary. Yvonne, I know one was a student, leadership. You had said something about leadership, and I think it's also the opportunity, if we can engage with our students to the extent that true leadership is being able to be nimble, flexible, responsive, adaptable to, guess what, things we don't even know are going to be needed in the future. And if we could bring some of that, use the word resiliency again, or ways to navigate, ways to professionally work together, ways that are intrapersonally and interpersonally important. And I think we can go far, right? Holistic health and social work, right? I mean, that's going to be key to our success and to the student's success. And that, I think, is true leadership. Carla?
Yeah, a little bit broader picture of things, Ron. I'm tired of hearing about how wonderful Grand Valley is. I heard another new program they're rolling out now for the veterans, which just was amazing and great press.
I heard that.
So we're doing all this restructuring and it's a process, and there are many aspects of it that I'm excited about. However, it seems as though some really uplifting messaging would be really nice, because I hear GVSU one more time in a good way, right?
I know, and the president walking toward the camera about the new programs and new efforts. And a couple of things. I have a couple of comments. First of all, when I said that our applications are not down, in fact, they are flat or above a little bit. GVSU is one of those that they've gone down, number one. So sorry, who knows what that's for fall 2021. The other thing is, you've read our minds as deans. We engage with President Montgomery 2 times in the last few months. And I don't know if you guys get this, but when I hear President Montgomery's genuineness, his excitement, his positivity, when he talks, his vision, when it's not just only coming from a message from him, when he writes that message, you can tell, by the way, when he wrote it versus maybe someone else. And when you hear him, you want to follow him. It's genuine, it's heartfelt, it's positive, it's forward thinking. We've just engaged him 2 different times to say, basically, we need more President Montgomery, really. And he's engaged with the process that we're going to be taking with academic affairs in this interdisciplinarity. And again, I don't want to say too much, only because I want Jen, who's very excited as well, and can get us going as well, to actually communicate that next Wednesday. But it's in line with what I think we need. Carla, you're right. I would love to see more of Ed Montgomery out in front of this, because when he talks, I want to follow. And and we all do. And we made that clear to him. So hopefully we'll see more getting ahead of this. We are when it comes to research, innovation, even in our college that we have a lot of professional, professional programs, we are far and above an institution that creates knowledge and creates best practices than a place like GVSU. Now, maybe they want to aspire to that, but we're there and we can do better and we can do more. I wish we would get that press, right? I wish, but we have to we have to write our own narrative, right? We have to write our own narrative. I think this new effort will put us out there. I think if we could announce this, walking toward a camera, saying, here's who we are, here's what we are for our students, I'd want to come here right away.
And I in no way wanted to take away all the work that Joel and Nick are doing. I mean, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
This was not, a reflection on them at all. We see the impact of the work that they're putting forward. I guess I just was looking at more of a university level and just messaging and something that's going to inspire us to, let's go team, instead of like, what?
Well, we also have asked President Montgomery if this will be a Board of Trustees effort, if this will be the cabinet's effort, if this will be academic affairs effort, if this will be faculty senate effort. And the answer to all of that was yes, this is a university effort. So I think we got two gifts. We got the gift, I believe, if you really look at it, we got the gift of think big and the gift of think smart. We got that because it's student-centric, student-focused. It's about their well-being. It's about their success, the student's success. And secondly, we got this gift with that group that from Faculty Senate that said, we need to work together better to provide a better, more high-quality, nimble product for the future. And I know I'm going back to, I'm sorry if I call it a product. I'm really sorry, but we can do that. It's not a bad thing. I know I don't want to. I know I don't want to get into the whole argument of students are, they're our customers and this is a product. I'm not trying to say that. But when I think what the students need, we have to be responsive and we have to be responsible. We have great privilege here in working in our positions. There comes a lot of responsibility to meet the students where they are. Bridget, I see your hand.
Okay, sorry, I don't know video because it looks like it's doing funny things. So I want to the strategy. I like that you have increased in that diagram, like showing those cross-cutting themes. I mean, that just really resonates with me. And the way I kind of think about things. So appreciate it, just really appreciate it. One of the things I really like that you did earlier is in the presentation is you talked about like our parameters and where we are and kind of just where we are and operating with that. And I think one of the things you called us to do is to give you some suggestions around potential topic areas. And I think
potential what, Bridget?
Topic areas. Our areas. So I think to help me kind of think about that is it would be helpful to know the parameter. So for example, there's accreditation bodies. Like if you must have a director, like which accreditation, which schools or whatever within our college must align that way. And then the other thing that would help me kind of think, just to give you some ideas, would be what are the core competencies we want all of our students to graduate with? Because if we can center around those core competencies, then we can kind of think about how to integrate those pieces. So if I had that information, I might be able to kind of give you some more ideas about how to do that piece. And last, I want to say I appreciate you asking us for our feedback and our opinion. I realize that you can't always take all of our ideas, but it's always nice to be included in that discussion.
Bridget, thank you. I think core competencies is really a wonderful way of approaching this. The other thing is, we do have a table that we pull together on what are the requirements from accrediting bodies on leadership and how programs are run. That I don't know if it's finalized, but I believe we can share it, right, Alicia? So that could get at what you were talking about. I would hope that they're accurate. I think it was a while ago. I think it was about 6 months ago that we pulled that together. I'm sure nothing has radically changed too much. That would be a wonderful beginning discussion as we think of how there's alignment. Now, I'm not saying that there could be core competencies across our college. Like I would say a core competency is understanding equity, diversity, and inclusivity would be a core competency to all. That's why we put that statement out on race and anti-racism, is because that's what we believe and is important. Then, and we're the practitioners, and we're the people, we're the teachers, we're the educators. We need to understand who we're engaging with in the best way possible, most inclusive way possible. So other core competencies would help drive our discussion. They might be different than education, or they might be different than biological sciences or business. So attacking it that way, that would be a wonderful way to begin to find commonality then. Thank you, Bridget. And yeah, I'd love to do more of engagement. So I do have to tell you one thing. I'll be very open and honest about this. Not that I haven't been on everything, but one thing is I always feel like when I come before all of the faculty, I have to have all the answers. And sometimes that keeps me from engaging more often. Not that I don't want to, but I feel like, oh, if I can't answer every one of the questions, then we don't move the discussion forward. So I think we can have these discussions more often, and we should.
Ron, there was a question that's sliding up in the chat about what changes do you foresee in advising and student services?
Oh gosh, advising and student services have been impacted by the budget cuts more. One person we lost, and then a reduction of their annual workload. The university is also looking with 1WMU. Nancy might be able to address some of this. I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis put in the first year, first 2 years, first year, maybe even those students that are falling through the cracks, that may be one major and then transfer to the next, or don't have a declared major. I think that's where WMU would be impacting. Once a major is declared, we get them as our responsibility. Nancy, I know we're having our numbers are going down from the campus, but also a little bit with us. We've made some adjustments to advising. Do you want to address some of that?
Sure, I'd be glad to, and I'll hope my video stays with me here. So that's really the crux of what 1WMU effort is about, or University College. You may have heard either or both of those terms. That's really the same thing. So it's a unified effort across campus that's looking at the gaps in our student services, particularly around advising, but in other student supports as well. So we're also part of a 3-year initiative with the Gardner Institute and NACADA, which is the National Association for Academic Advisors. We're one of 11 institutions across the nation in this second tier of research around developing excellence in academic advising. So that's an effort nationally to really identify a core set of student learning outcomes and of advisor learning outcomes around academic advising. We've had some conversation more about going the route of a coach as opposed to using the word advisor quite so much. While advising is part of it, advisors do more than just talk about the transactional pieces. So it's an effort with, I believe there are 63 people on the task force this year. Last year it was close to about the same amount. A few of us served in the 1WMU effort last year that are also on the academic excellence effort this year. So that there's consistency mostly, and that the work of last year isn't lost. But it is, as Ron said, about the first 2 years. One of the reasons our enrollment is steady, we're thrilled to see at this point, we've made gains in retaining into the junior year. So that's a good sign for our college. And that's a college effort about how do we really work with students? How do we work with our advisors? How do we support the advising staff we do have? How do we train our advisors consistently? How do we work under a common theme for advising? So it is interesting and fun and important work because, as all of you know, our advising and student success staff are also a main support. So we are looking at including how we support the advising staff themselves better than perhaps we have in the past. I hope that answered the question. If not, please let me know and I can say some more or have a private conversation later if you'd rather.
Thank you, Nancy. Carla, do you have an operations?
I do. Sometimes I make myself dizzy with the big picture. What do we do? Big picture action items. So the Student Occupational Therapy Association last night facilitated a meeting. The Kalamazoo chapter did a meeting regarding hard conversations, right? It was this awesome event. So cool. Loved it. But they used tools within that discussion that I think could help us as we talk about the different themes and threads and divisions, restructuring within our college. So I think that there are ways, like if you would write 2 or 3 questions that you would delegate to each department, and then there are ways we can process that at the department level to do that, and then anonymously get some of those suggestions forward to you.
I like that.
There were there's some hard questions and a thoughtful one. So I think this puts it back on the chairs and directors to provide some time in the department meetings to have those discussions, and perhaps get some of those suggestions that we'd love to have, and then to you anonymously. So anyway, I think there are some ways that we can help facilitate that process.
That's great. Great suggestion. There's a number of ways we can have open, but we can also have very focused, and I like that, Carla. I think of some off the top of my head, but I could even take some suggestions on what those questions might be and then formulate those. I like it. Oh, there was a question about if we want to see part-time or contracted instructors involved in this process. Yes, definitely. I think there should and could be a role. If when it comes to the department, maybe there could be ways that we could reach out to the part-time and contract instructors to be part of that, answering some of those questions in the first place. But then if we formulate groups, and I'm going to probably kick the group formulation to what we're going to do at the university level, rather than maybe formulating the same groups here, repeating the same process. That might get way too burdensome. But that's something that we have to kind of figure out. And maybe, so Carla, yeah, if you want to talk and see, I have some questions in mind, but you might have some more, drilled down questions, and others might too. I can take suggestions on the types of questions.
Dean Sisler?
Yes.
Yes, this is Marion. Triplets, social work. My question is, will we be hearing and seeing more on how the issues and opportunities relative to diversity, equity, and inclusion will be integrated into all of these different processes?
Yes, because of workload and some real practical things, we haven't been able to actually establish our Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Right now, like I said earlier, it's a committee. We're working with someone, I don't think I'm ready to say, to work on a contract and just the last level things to start January 1st. Then this individual will be working with us, all of us, to put our statement of racism, anti-racism, put our diversity and inclusion committee work at a higher level in the college, and with support as best we can right now under really difficult things. So the other areas of IPE and research and innovation, we're putting some dollars with Ann to continue that. IPE, we still have to figure out, but diversity and inclusion is something we need to work on now. And so it just is taken from a practical standpoint and time and availability to not have that earlier, but we plan on that being January 1st. And we're close to kind of signing a nice agreement. Marion, does that help?
It does. I think whenever there's large change that's going forth, populations and communities that are underrepresented are at risk of being even further underrepresented. And I think, we've had opportunities where our students have shared their experiences at being single individuals in programs. And I know we've also had conversations with staff and faculty about diverse representation and focus on issues that impact communities of diversity. And I think, it seems that we're making some strong and consistent inroads with respect to rural communities. I just wonder about some of our more urbanish issues and ways that we can increase outreach and awareness to diverse student population, especially if it sounds as if there's going to be more opportunities available, for education. So diversity, equity, and inclusion in advising, outreach, recruitment, retention, where that conversation is integrated into all of that. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Lisa, you read my mind in helping respond to that too. So
yeah, Marianne, thanks for bringing that point up. I have a draft in my email to you that's been sitting there for a couple days. We are doing a pipeline program that will involve Benton Harbor High School and Lakeland Community Hospital and WMed with AHEC. So it's very exciting. It's part of the $50,000 that Spectrum Health has committed to us for a 5-year longitudinal program for high school students who are underrepresented minorities. So I will be in touch with you, and we're really, really excited to work with you down in Southwest Michigan.
And Spectrum has a presence in St. Joe's, Benton Harbor, Lake, in that area. What is it, Lakeview Hospital?
Lakeland.
Lakeland, yeah.
There was a question, Ron, about the evolving relationship with the college and WMUX.
Yes. So WMUX, it's not the same old EUP. WMUX will, it's kind of supporting and folding into the university college and one WMU. They are more of a student services, faculty services with, all that we're doing online now and virtually, very much of a support system than they are a separate entity like EUP was in revenue generation or whatever. In fact, they won't be doing any of that. The dollars as well, like I said earlier, will all students, no matter where they come from, are WMU students. So those I know I'm going back to dollars and cents, sorry, but those revenues from those tuition dollars or whatever will come in through the colleges rather than through WMUX or in the past EUP. So I know I talked about it from a conceptual standpoint, Dee, but also from a practical standpoint. I hope that answered that.
Thank you. It does. I think, especially at the regional sites, with the East of Outlying campus closing and moving everyone to the downtown campus, I think there still is a little bit of ambiguity around negotiating access to the building and space and doing our events and like our drive-by welcomes and things like that in terms of communication and decision-making that maybe we can explore that, how that relationship moves forward.
Yeah, and I think that with OT and with public health and social work, we should get together and talk about the needs, because I think we're going to have to be responsive as a college to those needs in the future and not rely on UP, WMUX. I think they're helping where possible right now, but that will change. So I would look forward to that discussion.
This is Shannon.
Yeah.
Wanted to second what I just wanted to affirm and second what Dee is saying, and that would be great. I think to join forces with the 3 graduate programs that we have up there would be great to try to move forward and smoothing out some of those bumps that are occurring.
Good. That's great. We can call that meeting. Alicia, maybe we can call the meeting and have the initial discussion. Who would be the people most involved? Would we want the chairs and directors and or coordinators, or how do you think? Maybe we can discuss this elsewhere, but to
Sure.
think about who you might want involved in that type of meeting.
Yeah, Nancy Hawk for us, but we can talk about that. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you. So with the little space here, I encourage you again, and this doesn't, I'm not ending the conversation, just allows you some time to think. If you have other questions, I encourage everyone to attend the Provost Town Hall from 3 to 5 p.m. on November 18th, which is a Wednesday. And more discussion on the vision for our campus when it comes to academics, I think is going to be really encouraging, enlightening, and exciting. Joel, we're not missing any of the chat discussion items.
If we've missed it, I've totally missed it. No, I don't. It's been not super chatty today.
Hey, I have an idea. Can you quickly, if people don't mind, I don't want to waste people's time. Can you bring up the impact report and just, I'm putting you on the spot, but quickly page through it and kind of as a highlight to all that we've done, the focus of a lot of our efforts is in that report. And again, we can go back to discussion if you want to put in a chat item.
Yeah, am I sharing my screen now?
Yeah, you have speech, language, and hearing sciences faculty. Oh, here we go.
We're getting there.
All right.
Yeah, I hope you're, I mean, you should be seeing this.
Yeah.
It's the same format as we've used before, just kind of going through, you know, some of the numbers. Now this is, usually we've, well, usually the last one we released, it was at the end of spring. So this is, you know, some of this information is from 29, it's from last academic year. So it feels a little old, but it's, you know, it's still the most recent data.
This is most recent, yeah. Hey, Carl. Oh, and it's the mock-up on the lower left of what would have been our and could someday be our digs on the first floor, what Nancy calls the crown jewel, with some mock-up. Welcome centers there.
Yeah, a lot of this document is linking to news articles that have been that have appeared in WMU News and in the college newsletters over the last year. Some is not. The OT program piece was new for this report. Links to the statement on race and anti-racism. You know, the good news about the grants for vision rehabilitation therapy and orientation and mobility.
Admissions process for PA, which has been successful.
Right. So, and this is where you can really tell that we were late in getting this out, because we're talking about some things that happened over the summer, and even this article on the bottom right about students leading COVID-19 efforts on campus. That article just came out this week or late last week.
Yeah.
Of course, the 1.5 million designation for the Resiliency Center. Trying to do a couple of some student profiles. There's one social work. There's one later for a nursing student. Calling out congratulations here to the 50th anniversary for the School of Social Work.
Mind Proud. Speech Path Clinic. Yep.
Yeah, calling back to just about a year ago, right? The Native American Heritage Month activities that we hosted here.
Good. It's not all encompassing or comprehensive, but I think it shows a nice snapshot of what we do. And in almost every one of those pictures, I see impact. And it's just so wonderful to be part of this college.
And I'll say when we're later on today, we'll send out the recording of this meeting, and it'll also the slide deck that the dean gave was running, and links to all of these to the impact report, and a lot of other information will be in that email as well.
Oh, sorry. I sent something to all that was supposed to be a private chat, just having a conversation with Dee. probably about some Grand Rapids stuff and whatever. Um, any other comments, questions? Jan, thanks. As a collective report, because stories are oftentimes written by people who are doing the work, and then revised, edited by Joel with his magic, and a lot of people touch the stories, and it's wonderful. Thanks, Jan. Yeah, Michelle, good to see everyone. You're right. I noticed you were smiling a lot and moving. And when people move, then they move toward, I think, the front of the of who we can see on screen. Joel wants more stories. Well, I think I would propose that we have another, maybe Alicia, we can work on a Friday, maybe a month from now, or a couple of weeks even, maybe early December, to meet again, just to get your reactions to the Provost's initiative, our initiative. Let's own it, and then maybe start drilling down on what our college can do as part of this process. I think it's going to be exciting. To me, it's not just doing something for doing it, but for a vision of what and how we're meeting our students' needs and what we're going to be like in 5 to 10 years. And actually, we just ended, or will end, our previous strategic plan ends in 2020. It was for what we will be like in 2020. Alicia and I are working on that for what have we achieved over the last few years and during that time. But then it also could be a time of change and discussion to put some things to paper on what we think we will be and want to be 5 to 10 years from now, updating that strategic planning report, making it real, making it achievable, and having some good outcomes and markers that we can work toward. So with that said, how about I'm off the top of my head, maybe a month from now, depending on how that works, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now, coming back together, maybe even sooner than later, 2 weeks, and we might be good, although that's the holiday time, maybe the first Friday of December that we could get together and talk about our thoughts moving forward and get some volunteers, get people to be engaged into the campus process as well as our college. Some folks are signing off, Jennifer, others. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll move forward together. Appreciate it.
Thank you.